Dear friends, this is Daisuke, and I very much hope that this video finds you well and in very good spirits wherever you are in the world. And today, if you don't mind, I would very much like to continue on with the 31 days of gangster films and cop films from the year 1970 to the present day. And as I've mentioned before, it is my hope that this can afford us, you and I, with the opportunity to be able to talk about as many films as possible throughout the course of these 31 days in the context of these genres respectively. And I should say too that I totally understand that these genres themselves, and others for that matter, and also not just in cinema but in the context of the arts, literature, music, etc., I understand that these genres can be subject to a varying degree of interpretation, and also subgenres, subcategories, and further sub-divided categorizations. So in many ways, it could be said that the sky is the limit, and how one's cinema journey is being carried out, that might have a lot to do with how we subjectively view, or how we have our own takes and interpretations about what these genres are, and what films in fact fall within these genres and which don't, etc. For purposes of today, or these 31 days, I have tried to express my view that I think it's very exciting and fun to be able to interpret these genres somewhat broadly, and with a potentially wide expanse. And so there might have been films that I've discussed so far that you might feel don't necessarily fall within the particular genres, but that's okay. That's totally okay. I am very open to that type of discussion. But just for me, I do feel that the films that I am discussing so far do fall, for one reason or another, in the context of these genres. And so in that, I'd like to say that maybe the film that I'm about to talk about today, in the context of the gangster film, might not seem to necessarily fall within the gangster film genre, but that's okay. But I do believe that it is a fair thing to talk about. It does have those elements that I'll try to explain. But also, I do want to say that this discussion will hopefully provide me with the opportunity to talk about this film, because in addition to those points, it is a film that I have a very strong personal connection with, and I'll try to explain that later in the video. But with all that, what's the film, right? What's the film? So this is once again the gangster film. It is described as being from 1973, and it is directed by George Roy Hill, written by David S. Ward, and it has in its great cast people like Robert Earl Jones, Charles Durning, Eileen Brennan, and Robert Shaw, and stars Paul Newman and Robert Redford. And I'm speaking about this film, again, described as being from 73. And it is The Sting. The Sting. This is such a great film, and it has a great cast, it has great music, the story is wonderful, and it has that wonderful look and feel and atmosphere. This is America, set against the years of the Depression, 1930s look and air and feel, and we have these characters wonderfully portrayed. Henry Gondorff, Johnny Hooker, this is Paul Newman and Robert Redford respectively, and Doyle Lonnegan, Robert Shaw and Luther, Robert Earl Jones, etc., and great other, Eileen Brennan, Charles Durning. What a great cast. And Marvin Hamlish music, which is of course based upon the great works, the rags, the piano pieces by the legend that is Scott Joplin. And so all of this is combined to under the guidance and direction of George Roy Hill, and the writing of David S. Ward, etc., and the production. This is all combined to tell the tale that is regarding grifters, con artists, people who are trying to pull off the con in order to get money and the like. And so it has this innocent, almost anti-hero type of playful charm to the matter. And so in this way, we are dealing with elements of the trick, elements of the con, elements of maybe crime, or maybe to the extent from a certain degree anyway, petty crime. So, but in that process, and especially when we're talking about the story of Johnny Hooker, the Robert Redford character, we understand too that through a set of circumstances somewhat early on, he does run into trouble. And he does run into trouble with the law and also with the criminal underworld of sorts, as represented by the really almost wonderfully portrayed and very menacing role with gravitas, so much gravitas. This is Robert Shaw's Doyle Lonnegan. We realize that he has run into some very, very difficult and indeed tragic circumstances involving the sort of underworld criminal element. So in that situation, what is our hero to do? Robert Redford character, what is he to do? And this leads the plot towards his encounter with the legendary Paul Newman character, Henry. And so through that combination, we have the Robert Redford Paul Newman duo trying to plan it out with their friends and with their other partnerships. They are trying to plan out the perfect, super complex con, the con to end all cons, in a manner of speaking. How will they be able to plan it? How will they be able to pull it off? And what is their objective? Ultimately, their objective is perhaps to get a large sum of money or to pull off the most perfect trick. And their target is this antagonist, this enemy, this quote-unquote villain, that is the Robert Shaw character. So this is the setup for the film The Sting. And we see in this all the intricacies of the plot and planning. What is the idea? What will be the take? What is the risk? And there's a lot of risk, not just on the side of the criminal element, but also on the side of the law, because the law and law enforcement are also, we see, hot on their heels, in a manner of speaking. And also there's danger, there's potential for death and murder. We also see that as well. So this is a world that is not free from that element of danger. In fact, it is very dangerous. And in fact, too, we understand there is a life and death type of stakes going on. So, but it is also so much fun. It is also set up in a way that is very almost tongue-in-cheek, very playful. And this is guided along by a number of factors. I think in large part due to the great chemistry between and among the performers. In particular, the great chemistry between Robert Redford and Paul Newman. This is one of the great duos of cinematic history, in my view. And you can tell that immediately just by the way in which they play off each other so well. There's this idea of sort of the youthful, almost inexperience of the Robert Redford character versus the almost worn out over-experience of Paul Newman's character. But that's how their character dynamics are set up. And you can see how they are, the performers are playing off that, or maybe winking at the audience, maybe giving that kind of vibe and feel and atmosphere. That's so great. That's sort of, so it's in that way it has this playful atmosphere, and also the way in which the con or the confidence trick or the setup, how this is planned out and practiced and rehearsed and the like. There is a type of almost, maybe for lack of a better phrase, innocent charm about it. Of course, these are kind of petty crimes and the like, but there's also a charm and almost a sense of a type of almost a type of Robin Hood type of justice, in a certain manner of speaking anyway. And so we do have the ability to sympathize with these characters along the way. So, and that adds, I think, a sense of charm and wit and style and playfulness as well. So it's a great setup because we have the sense of danger and risk, but also we also have the sense of playfulness and repartee and banter. So that wonderful sense, that almost champagne cocktail type of mix and style, I think really adds a sense of entertainment to this particular proceeding. And too, I should say, without giving away too much, this push and pull between the serious and the lighthearted, this push and pull between the ultra maybe life and death stakes, and also the playful innocent charm, as it were. This is, I think, very important too, because it does set up certain possibilities of plot, shall we say, and how the film will turn, what will happen at certain key points. Will it go this way or will it go that way? And that also adds a sense of, say, suspense and drama and indeed surprise when we as viewers watch this film go forward. If you haven't seen the film The Sting yet, I encourage you to not read any plot synopses or anything of the sort. Go into it fresh. It is very fun that way, indeed. And so I will do my best here to not mention any more about that. But let me also say, too, that just adding into the style, again, not talking about the specific plot per se, but just adding into the style, let me say that there is the great atmosphere and ambiance. As I say, this is set against the backdrop of a sort of 1930s Depression era type of America, and it's rendered so well with the with the fashion and the backdrop and the look and feel and style. It's so wonderfully rendered as a cinematic presentation. And also the music. The music is one of the key points of this. Marvin Hamlish is credited for the music, and this is, of course, he is acknowledged, and it is very famously known that this is also based upon the wonderful work by Scott Joplin. Scott Joplin's the music of Scott Joplin, the piano works, the rags, in particular, what could be said to be the theme of this film, which is based upon the work The Entertainer. Scott Joplin's The Entertainer, and there are so many works of Scott Joplin that are embedded throughout the film. So, and that adds to the overall unique sense of charm and wit and style and beauty and grace of the film. And the music is, to me, absolutely enchanting. Absolutely enchanting. And let me take a moment to say here that, again, I said that I have a very personal feeling or attachment to this film, and that is due to the fact that my mother, who is no longer with us, my mother loved this film. She absolutely loved this film. And so when I grew up in the household, I could remember she would talk about this film on a fairly regular basis with me, and to say, and she loved it. She played the piano, and I would hear echoing throughout the house the Scott Joplin work. She loved Scott. I think Scott Joplin was her favorite in terms of musicians and composers. And so I think of all the piano works that she played while she was alive and I was growing up, of all the works she played, I think she played Scott Joplin works the most. And that added to her love of this film, The Sting. She would watch this film so much over and over again. For her, it would be, she would have, today she would have a crush on Paul Newman, and the next day she would have a crush on Robert Redford. That was that kind of thing for her as well. So I think about this film, and every time I watch it, I am fondly reminded of my mother. And there's a particular work here, and I mentioned The Entertainer, but there's also a particular work that's used to great effect in this film, the piece of music, and it's called Solace, and it is a slow piece. It has a type of melancholy in the air, and it is used so well in this. And that, I think, is, of all the works that I remember my mother playing in the household when I was growing up as a kid, whenever she played Solace on the piano, I think that is, for me, one of my most cherished memories of her. And when I hear that, I fondly recall that with warmth and happiness of a time that is no longer here, but it's still alive in my memory. And even though my memory is fading with my advancing age, I will do my best to hold on to that as long as possible. And to help me, I will have works like The Sting that I can watch over and over again, because to listen to that music helps me in my own memory. And that's why I think it's so great to have what I'd like to call the cinema journey. And that is why that I wanted to have this opportunity to talk about the film The Sting in the context of the gangster film. Let me go back and say that maybe with the gangster film, this might not seem on paper to be a direct gangster film for a number of people who are watching this video, and I understand that if you feel that way. But I do want to say that it does have the level of, it has crime involved. It has the idea of the trick or the double cross or the triple cross or the double cross, however one takes it. It also has the idea of dealing with the criminal element, the criminal underworld, the danger of that, as again personified by the performance by Robert Shaw, etc. So Doyle Lonnegan, and so and then those, and then trying to get back, get even, and so there is that element there. So I think from a broad perspective or liberal interpretation of the genre, I think I'm very comfortable talking about this film, The Sting, in the context of the gangster films over the course of the 31 days, and this is a great one indeed, The Sting. Let me say also before I forget that there is also a sequel from, it's described as from 1983, which is Sting 2, and this has Jackie Gleason and Mac Davis and Terry Garr and Carl Malden and also Oliver Reed as well. So this is a very interesting work. It might not seem to a number of people, maybe if one compares it to the original work from approximately 10 years prior, maybe it's a difficult comparison. However, I think it holds up very well on its own. There are links to the first film, although there are also some interesting differences as well, which make, I think, for interesting discussion as to how much this is a sequel or how much this is a type of inspiration for with regard to the first film. In any event, it is The Sting 2, and there is still that spirit of the depiction of the world and the old times, and the look and flair and the fashion and the music, and also the idea of the con, the trick, the double cross, and the target, and in somewhat separate circumstances, but still I think it's continuing on very well. And so, and especially too, it has this great rapport, I think, amongst the key players, and I mentioned Jackie Gleason and Mac Davis and Terry Garr, and then Carl Malden and Oliver Reed. I mean, it's a really great time. It's a really fun time. So if you're looking for maybe a comparison contrast, maybe that's one thing. But if you're looking for, I think, a work that it is what it is, but it's also, I think, very entertaining on its own terms. So there's also this option as well, The Sting 2, for those who might be interested. But then just returning now to The Sting, this film is undeniably a powerful and strong and really brilliant and thoroughly entertaining work that, as I say, I have quite personal feelings about. So thank you very much for allowing me the opportunity to talk about this work today, which is The Sting. Okay, my dear friends, so that's it for now. And so until we meet again, please be happy and healthy and well. And please keep on watching a lot of great movies. Thank you so much, as always, for your time. I very much appreciate it. Stay strong, stay safe, and cheers.